What happened when an undercover CEO took a late-night walk and saw his lifeguard doing more than just guarding lives, restoring the heart of his resort? You're about to find out. Welcome, wonderful listeners. You've got great taste in stories that matter. If you believe in quiet heroes, this one's for you. Tonight, we dive into a powerful tale of unseen labor, unexpected leadership, and how one man's silent dedication transformed an entire company. Grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's explore what happens when humility meets opportunity and someone finally decides to look a little closer. Most guests never saw him, but every night, just after the resort lights dimmed and the last glass of wine was poured, Ethan Cole stepped into his quiet rhythm. As the night lifeguard at Ocean Bay Resort, he was technically assigned to watch the moonlit shoreline and ensure no one slipped into danger after hours. But Ethan did more than that. Long after beach towels were abandoned and the poolside chatter faded, he walked the resort's wooden pathways like a silent guardian, adjusting patio chairs, picking up wind-blown menus, realigning umbrellas, and tightening loose bowls on railing posts with the small multi-tool he always kept in his pocket. He never asked for help, never left a mess for morning staff. If something needed doing, he did it, not because anyone asked, but because it should be done right. He had his routine, a slow loop around the beachfront cabanas, a quick check behind the tiki bar, then a final walk along the edge of the infinity pool where the water shimmered under starlight. The night air smelled of salt and faint jasmine. It reminded him of simpler times, before the loss, before the pressure of single fatherhood. Ethan never rushed, never looked at his watch. In a world that was always speeding past itself, his stillness had purpose. He believed that the quiet hours were when the soul of a place revealed itself. No one trained him to check on the slipped towel racks or to restock the poolside napkin bins. But he'd once told a trainee, if it bugs you enough to notice, fix it before it bugs someone else. That was Ethan, the man who showed up early, stayed a little late, and never expected a thank you. To the day crew, he was just the guy who clocked in after sunset. To most guests, he was invisible. But the ones who did notice, the security guard, the groundskeeper, the night chef, they called him Steady Hands, not because he was loud, because he never let things fall apart. And as the waves rolled onto the shore and the wind gently rattled the palm leaves above, Ethan Cole kept moving. Not for recognition, not for reward, but because somewhere along the way, he'd learned that showing up matters most when no one's watching. The moon hung low over Ocean Bay Resort, casting silver ripples across the still water of the infinity pool. On most nights, Cassandra Blake, the 52-year-old founder and CEO of the resort chain, would be asleep by now, her day consumed by investor calls, strategic meetings, and rapid-fire decisions that rarely allowed time for reflection. But tonight, she couldn't sleep. The upcoming board review loomed in her mind, and the resort's declining guest retention numbers had started to whisper doubts in the ears of the venture partners who once praised her boldness. She threw a light cardigan over her shoulders and stepped out of her suite barefoot, needing air, needing stillness, something that didn't come easy in her world of constant movement. As she walked along the upper deck of the main lodge, the sounds of the day were long gone. No clinking of glasses, no laughter from honeymooners, or music from the beachfront bar. Just the hush of waves and the soft hum of night insects. Then she saw him. Below her, a lone figure moved quietly between pool chairs and cabanas. At first she assumed it was one of the late-shift servers tidying up, but as she leaned against the wooden railing and squinted in the moonlight, she realized it was the night lifeguard. What was his name? Evan? No, Ethan. She watched as he slowly bent down to retrieve a forgotten flip-flop near the hot tub, then carefully wound a stray extension cord into a neat coil and hung it on its proper hook. His movements weren't rushed, they were measured, purposeful. He wasn't just cleaning, he was tending. Cassandra found herself holding her breath. She had walked this same deck hundreds of times, breezing past these chairs, through these spaces, always assuming someone took care of it all. She'd never stopped to think who. And now, for reasons she couldn't name, she couldn't look away. A memory surfaced. Her father in their small Michigan backyard, fixing a broken fence panel in silence after a 12-hour shift at the mill. He hadn't said much. He just showed her, with calloused hands and quiet purpose, that real care isn't loud. Watching Ethan now in the same deliberate rhythm, she felt that memory like a tug in her chest. Maybe the heart of this place wasn't in the spreadsheets or branding packages. Maybe it was here, in the stillness, in the forgotten hours, in the man the world barely noticed.
In a tucked-away corner of the resort, beyond the now darkened tiki bar and the quiet shuffle of palm leaves, the soft glow of a single lantern flickered from inside the beachfront event tent. Maya Linton, a 24-year-old event assistant fresh out of college, sat cross-legged on the wooden floor, surrounded by damp paper, wilted signs, and a laptop that had just crashed for the second time. Her eyes were red, her fingers trembling from hours of redoing work that had been ruined by a burst sprinkler line earlier that evening. It was her first time leading logistics for the resort's high-stakes investor gala, and everything had gone sideways. Her manager left at 8 o'clock with a pat on the shoulder and a "just clean it up best you can." Everyone else followed, and now it was nearly midnight, and she was alone, utterly, painfully alone. The quiet shuffle of sandals on sand made her jolt upright. She turned and saw a tall figure just outside the canvas flap. Her breath caught. Was it security? A guest? "Are you okay in there?" came a gentle voice. It was Ethan, the night lifeguard. She'd seen him once or twice from a distance, but had never exchanged more than a nod. She quickly wiped at her eyes, embarrassed. "I'm fine," she muttered, clearly not, just trying to salvage a disaster. Ethan didn't step in right away. He waited a moment, sensing her hesitation. "I've got some time," he said. "Mind if I lend a hand?" Maya blinked, caught off guard by the offer. Her instinct was to decline. This wasn't his job. He probably didn't know the first thing about event planning, but when she looked at him, his steady posture, the unspoken calm in his face, something in her cracked. She nodded. He stepped in slowly, not saying much at first, just rolled up his sleeves and began sorting through the papers. He placed the least damaged ones in one pile, then completely soaked in another. "You've got good color choices here," he said casually, pointing at the gala signage. It wasn't flattery, just an observation. But it grounded her. Bit by bit, they worked together. He asked simple, thoughtful questions. "What's this part for? Is there a backup for that file?" "How important is this table chart?" And with each one, her panic eased. He disappeared for a moment and came back with 2 cups of chamomile tea from the staff kitchen. "It helps," he said with a small smile. Maya took it, hands still shaking. No manager had offered her this. No one had stayed. But he had. A man with no stake in the outcome, staying simply because he saw someone who needed help. Up on the second-leveled veranda, framed by shadows and starlight, Cassandra Blake leaned quietly against a cedar post, her arms crossed and a furrow forming between her brows. She hadn't meant to linger. She was just passing through on her way back to her suite. But something about the dim glow coming from the beachfront event tent had drawn her gaze. She couldn't see details at first, just soft movement, the shift of shadows. Then her eyes adjusted. Inside, she saw 2 figures, the young woman she vaguely recognized from the events team, Maya maybe, and Ethan, the night lifeguard. But he wasn't just passing through or tidying chairs. He was seated beside her, sleeves rolled, calmly organizing papers as if it were part of his nightly patrol. Cassandra watched, arms tightening around herself, unable to look away. There was no grand gesture, no flashy advice or high-handed speech. Ethan wasn't trying to solve everything. He was just present. He leaned in attentively when Maya spoke, nodded slowly, occasionally pointed at something on the table. His posture wasn't managerial. It was human. He offered a kind of care that was rare in her world, quiet, patient, intentional. And Maya, she looked different now too, still tired, but less frantic, grounded, like someone had reminded her she wasn't invisible. The CEO felt something stir in her chest, a strange, disorienting mix of guilt and awe. Here she was, founder of the resort chain, an empire builder known for high-end execution and executive polish, and she'd never noticed the man who had likely walked these paths more than anyone else. Her thoughts raced. How long had Ethan been working here? Has anyone ever thanked him? Had she? She tried to remember a time she'd passed him and even registered his face. Nothing came. Below, Ethan stood to retrieve a dropped binder, gently handing it back to Maya. The gesture was so ordinary, so small, and yet, to Cassandra, it might as well have been the most profound thing she'd seen all year. In that moment, under canvas and starlight, she saw the beating heart of her resort, not in spreadsheets or strategy decks, but in a lifeguard helping a junior staffer through a breakdown. Without audience, agenda, or applause, Cassandra didn't move for a long while. When she finally turned away, she wasn't just headed back to her suite. She was walking toward a decision she didn't yet have words for, but one she knew would change the resort forever. The next morning, Cassandra Blake arrived at the administrative building an hour earlier than usual. The sunlight hadn't yet reached the back courtyards, and the front desk staff hadn't even brewed their first pot of coffee. But Cassandra didn't stop for greetings or check-ins. Instead, she walked directly to human resources, her heels echoing through the hallway like punctuation marks on a decision she had already made. When she stepped into the office of Dana Morales, the resort's HR director, Dana blinked in surprise. "Pretty, Mrs. Blake. Is something wrong?" she asked, instinctively reaching for the operations binder. "I need a personnel file," Cassandra said, her voice calm but firm. "Ethan Cole. He works overnight security. Lifeguard, technically." Dana nodded and rifled through the cabinets until she found a slim manila folder, thinner than Cassandra expected. She carried it upstairs and opened it at her desk, alone. There were no awards, no disciplinary marks, no executive feedback. His attendance record was flawless. 8 years on staff, not a single late arrival, not one sick day in over 3 years. The only review listed marked him satisfactory, consistent, reliable, quiet. Near the back of the file, tucked under an outdated ID photo, was a small sticky note. The handwriting was barely legible, obviously jotted quickly. Covers for teammates without asking. Trains new hires on his own time. Refuses tips. Doesn't say much. Just show up. No signature, just a scrap left behind by someone who had probably transferred long ago. Then came the salary line. Cassandra's stomach tightened. Just barely above base rate. No raise in 38 months. She closed her eyes. The man who'd stayed late, who had helped a team member through a professional crisis, who had been tending this resort like a caretaker of sacred ground, he was compensated like a replaceable temp. She kept reading. One emergency contact listed, Lena Cole, daughter, college freshman. Notes indicated that Ethan had picked up 3 holiday shifts the previous winter, allowing younger staff with families to be home. No one had recorded it as special. No one had thanked him. Cassandra slowly closed the folder, resting both hands to stop it. She had designed Ocean Bay to be elite, elegant, and efficient, but somewhere along the way, she had lost sight of the people who held it upright when no one was watching. And Ethan? He wasn't just a name in a file, he was the foundation. And she had every intention of making sure the entire company knew it. The monthly staff gathering at Ocean Bay Resort was usually routine. Department updates, performance metrics, announcements about bookings or guest satisfaction scores. Most employees came because they were required to, not because they expected anything meaningful. But that morning, as the staff filled the open-air pavilion beneath the palm-draped awning, a different kind of buzz rippled through the crowd. Something was off. In a good way. For one, Cassandra Blake was already standing at the front, not surrounded by department heads or PR materials, but alone at the podium, her expression thoughtful. Good morning, she began, her voice calm but charged. Today, I'm putting the numbers away. No charts, no dashboards. Just a story I need to tell you. The employees quieted, curious. In the back, standing near the exit, as he always did, Ethan Cole shifted uncomfortably in his clean uniform, unaware that the story about to be told was his. Cassandra's eyes scanned the crowd. Last night, while most of us were asleep, one of our employees stayed late, not because he was asked, not because it was in his job description, but because he saw someone struggling and chose to help. She paused, letting the words settle. He didn't do it for praise. He didn't even know anyone was watching, but I was. She looked toward the back of the room. Then, would you come up here, please? Heads turned. Ethan's heart skipped. For a moment, he thought she meant someone else. But as the crowd cleared a path and light applause began, he realized this moment, strange, uncomfortable, surreal, was his. Slowly, he walked to the front, his pulse in his ears, unsure what to say, unsure why this was happening. Cassandra turned to him with a warm smile. This is Ethan Cole. He's worked here for 8 years. Most of you know him as our night lifeguard. What many of you don't know is that he's also the reason our pool deck is always pristine, the reason new lifeguards show up trained, and just last night, the reason one of our youngest team members didn't give up under pressure. A round of applause built, not the polite kind, but real, resonant, growing into a standing ovation. Ethan blinked, stunned. I'm proud to announce Ethan's promotion to Night Operations Manager with expanded authority and a well-earned raise, Cassandra said. And beginning this quarter, we're launching a new recognition program, the Cole Code, to honor those among us who lead not through title, but through quiet integrity. Ethan didn't speak much. He didn't need to. The tears brimming in his eyes, the soft smile barely lifting his lips, said it all. And for the first time in 8 years, Ethan stood at the center of the resort, not as a shadow, but as a light. In the days following the ceremony, something shifted at Ocean Bay Resort. Subtly at first, then unmistakably. It wasn't policy or a new HR initiative. It was culture. And it started with a few quiet gestures. A junior manager from guest services was seen wiping down the espresso machine in the break room, something the night crew usually handled. A head chef left handwritten thank you notes beside the staff fridge addressed to those who keep the lights on while we sleep. Someone from accounting brought coffee to the maintenance team one morning. No memo, no photos, just a nod and a thanks. And everywhere Ethan Cole went, people greeted him by name. He hadn't changed much. He still walked the resort at night with a calm pace, still fixed crooked chairs and realigned pool signage without being asked. But now, he wasn't invisible. The younger staff sought him out, asked questions, stayed a little longer to help reset the cabanas after their shifts. They called him Coach or Cap. A newly hired lifeguard asked him one night, "How do you always know what needs fixing before anyone notices?" Ethan had chuckled and said, "You just have to pay attention. The small stuff speaks loud if you're willing to listen." Meanwhile, Maya Linton had found new confidence. Her gala presentation went off without a hitch, and when asked how she managed it, she simply said, "Someone stayed when he didn't have to." She'd begun checking in with the night crew herself, leaving extra supplies in reach, even volunteering for a midnight setup shift without hesitation. Cassandra Blake noticed it all, not in performance reports or metrics, but in glances, in tone, in how long people lingered before leaving a room. Her resort had always been beautiful, efficient, and profitable, but now it felt human. And Ethan? He didn't revel in the attention. If anything, he stepped back into the background, happy to see others stepping forward. He believed in letting the work speak for itself, but what had once been a silent devotion was now a ripple. spreading outward, carried by those who saw what kindness could do in the dark. Ocean Bay had always promised luxury, but now it promised something deeper: gratitude. 1 month later, under a sky salted with stars and the soft rustle of wind through palm fronds, Cassandra Blake found herself once again walking the quiet grounds of Ocean Bay Resort. The guest rooms were still, the waves calm. It was one of those rare nights where everything felt paused, as if the world was holding its breath. She hadn't planned to come down. Her emails could wait, and her wine was still sitting untouched on her desk upstairs. But her feet carried her to the same path, the same vantage point, where everything had changed. From the edge of the veranda, she saw them. Ethan, now in a navy polo marked Operations Lead, seated by the fire pit with 2 young lifeguards. They weren't joking around or killing time. He was showing them how to secure the rescue float lines, explaining how to spot signs of exhaustion in swimmers before it became dangerous. One asked him a question. Ethan smiled, that soft, quiet smile of someone who leads without needing to be followed, and answered with a patient nod and a story from years ago, likely one of the many no one had ever heard. Cassandra didn't interrupt. She just watched. The fire flickered across Ethan's face, highlighting the calm strength in his eyes. The same steadiness she'd seen that night beside Maya, the night that had changed her company without a single executive order or press release. It had changed her, too. She took a small, leather-bound notebook from her pocket, the one she'd started keeping after that night, and scribbled a simple line before the moment could fade. The best leaders don't ask to be seen. They notice the ones no one else does. Then she turned back toward the lodge, her heart full. She didn't need to oversee this moment. It was already in motion. A culture rebuilt by quiet acts, one fire-lit conversation at a time. And as the night deepened and the resort slept, the heartbeat of Ocean Bay remained steady in the hands of the man who had once been invisible, and now unmistakably vital. The story of Ethan Cole at Ocean Bay Resort teaches a profound lesson. True leadership doesn't require a title, spotlight, or applause. It's revealed in quiet acts of integrity when no one's watching. Ethan, a night lifeguard often overlooked by guests and executives alike, changed an entire company culture not through words, but through his consistent, unseen care and one small act of kindness toward a struggling coworker. His humility, reliability, and willingness to help without being asked reminded everyone, from the CEO to new hires, that character matters more than recognition. Cassandra Blake, the resort's founder, learned that success isn't just measured by numbers and prestige, but by how we treat the people who hold everything together behind the scenes. Her shift in perspective led to systemic change, not from a boardroom mandate, but from seeing value where it had always quietly existed. This story reminds us that some of the most powerful transformations start not with ambition, but with empathy. Not with those in charge, but with those who simply care. It's a call to notice the unnoticed, honor everyday heroism, and lead with heart. Because sometimes